You are earning more than you ever imagined, yet you are still just one missed paycheck away from total financial collapse. In this deep dive, we are exposing the silent epidemic of the high-income poverty trap and why your six-figure salary is actually keeping you broke. Most people believe that the solution to all their financial problems is simply more money. They think that if they could just hit that $100,000 or $200,000 mark, the stress would vanish, the debt would disappear, and they would finally be rich. But there is a haunting reality in 2026 that no one wants to admit. Making a lot of money and being wealthy are two completely different universes. Welcome to the world of the paper rich. These are the individuals who look incredible on Instagram. They drive the latest electric SUVs, they live in the trendiest zip codes, and their LinkedIn profiles are decorated with prestigious titles. On paper, they are the winners of the modern economy. But if you look at their actual bank statements, the story is terrifying. They are living in a state of high-income poverty. This isn't about people struggling on minimum wage. This is about the professional class, engineers, doctors, and tech leads, who are drowning. The trap begins with the golden handcuffs. As your income rises, your lifestyle doesn't just improve, it explodes. You trade your reliable sedan for a luxury lease that costs $1,200 a month. You move from a functional apartment to a high-rise with amenities you never use. Suddenly, your baseline for survival has shifted. You aren't working to build a future anymore. You are working just to maintain the expensive present you've built around yourself. The most dangerous part of this trap is that it is invisible to society. Because you look successful, no one suspects that you are panicking every time a large utility bill arrives or that your credit card utilization is at 80%. You are trapped in a cycle of earning to spend and spending to prove that you are earning. This is the foundation of the trap, the belief that a high salary equals financial safety. In reality, without a strategy, a high salary is just a bigger shovel to dig a deeper hole. We are going to break down exactly how this happens and how the math of 2026 is designed to keep you on this treadmill forever. The transition from comfortable to struggling happens so gradually that most people don't even notice the bars of the cage being built around them. This is the phenomenon known as lifestyle inflation, and in 2026, it is more aggressive than ever before. When you get that first major promotion or that big tech signing bonus, your brain immediately begins to pre-spend the money. You tell yourself that you've worked hard and that you deserve a higher standard of living. This is where the math starts to work against you. For every extra dollar you earn, a significant portion is immediately eaten by taxes, but your spending often increases by the full gross amount of the raise. If you earn an extra $2,000 a month, you might take home $1,400 after taxes, yet you commit to a new mortgage or a car payment that consumes $1,500. You are now technically poorer than you were before the raise. This is the upward spiral of expenses that creates the high-income poverty trap. It starts with the small things: premium subscriptions, organic grocery deliveries, and high-end gym memberships, but it quickly escalates into fixed costs. Fixed costs are the ultimate killers of wealth because they cannot be easily turned off. Once you sign a lease on a luxury apartment or finance a $70,000 vehicle, you are locked in. Your burn rate, the amount of money you need just to exist for 30 days, skyrockets. The person earning $50,000 with $30,000 in annual expenses has $20,000 of freedom. The person earning $250,000 with $245,000 in expenses has only $5,000 of freedom. Ironically, the person earning 5 times less is actually 4 times wealthier in terms of actual liquidity. This is why the paper rich feel so much pressure. They have zero margin for error. They are performing a high-wire act where the floor is miles below, and they have no safety net because every cent of their high income is already spoken for before it even hits their account. They aren't building an empire. They are simply servicing a massive, expensive machine that requires constant fuel. If that fuel, their paycheck, ever stops for even a month, the entire machine collapses. We need to look at why society encourages this behavior and how social proof is the marketing industry's greatest weapon against your bank account. In the next section, we will uncover the psychological warfare that makes you spend your future to impress people you don't even like. Why do smart, high-earning individuals fall into this trap? The answer isn't a lack of intelligence. It's the overwhelming pressure of social proof. In the professional world of 2026, your appearance is often treated as your resume. We live in an era where your zip code, the brand of your watch, and the school your children attend are used as shorthand for your competence. This creates a psychological phenomenon known as status debt. You feel a subconscious obligation to match the spending habits of your peers. If everyone in your office drives a Porsche or a Tesla Model S, driving a 10-year-old Toyota feels like a public admission of failure. You start to justify these purchases as investments in your career or networking requirements. You tell yourself that you need to look the part to get the next promotion, but in reality, you are just funding an expensive performance. This is where the high-income poverty trap becomes a mental prison. You are no longer buying things because you enjoy them. You are buying them so you don't feel inferior. Marketing agencies and social media algorithms have perfected the art of making luxury feel like a necessity. They target your specific income bracket with advertisements that suggest success looks a certain way. Because you have the high salary, the banks are more than happy to give you massive lines of credit, allowing you to bridge the gap between your actual cash flow and the lifestyle you think you should have. This leads to a dangerous paradox. You are surrounded by wealth, yet you feel a constant, low-level anxiety about money. You are terrified of being found out, of people realizing that behind the designer clothes and the glass-walled office, you are worried about making the next minimum payment on your credit card. You have traded your peace of mind for the approval of people who are likely just as broke and stressed as you are. This social competition is a race to the bottom, and the only winner is the bank collecting the interest. Most people don't realize that rich is what you see, but wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is the cars not purchased, the diamonds not bought, and the expensive dinners declined. By chasing social proof, you are effectively burning the seeds of your future wealth to stay warm in the glow of temporary admiration. If you want to escape, you have to be willing to look unsuccessful to the outside world while you build actual, private financial strength. But before you can do that, you have to face the most brutal math of all, the hidden cost of the standard of living tax that 2026 has imposed on every high earner. One of the most overlooked aspects of the high-income poverty trap is what I call the professional maintenance tax. As you climb the corporate or social ladder, the cost of simply maintaining your life begins to scale exponentially. It isn't just the mortgage or the car, it's the secondary costs that society expects from someone of your status. When you earn a high income, you suddenly find yourself paying for convenience because you no longer have the time to do anything yourself. You pay for premium grocery delivery, high-end laundry services, expensive landscaping, and private tutors for your kids. You are essentially outsourcing your entire personal life just to keep up with the demands of the job that pays for that life. This is a circular trap. You work more hours to afford the services that save you time, so you can spend that saved time working more hours. In 2026, this convenience culture is a multi-billion-dollar industry designed specifically to drain the bank accounts of high earners. Furthermore, there is the tax of association. When your social circle consists of other high earners, your leisure time becomes incredibly expensive. A simple weekend getaway with friends isn't a camping trip anymore. It's a $3,000 excursion to a boutique resort. Dinner isn't a local spot. It's a Michelin-starred experience where the wine list costs more than your first car. You feel forced to say yes to these invitations to maintain your professional network and social standing. If you stop participating, you fear you'll be left out of the loops where the big deals are made. Consequently, your high income doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the lifestyle that your career demands. You are effectively a middleman for your own paycheck. The money enters your account and immediately flows out to the various vendors, services, and landlords that facilitate your successful existence. You are left with the crumbs of your own labor, wondering why, despite the impressive numbers on your tax return, you still feel like you are struggling to keep your head above water. This is the reality of being rich on paper. You are a high-volume cash flow machine, but your net profit is nearly zero. To break free, you must recognize that your income is a tool for freedom, not a budget for an elaborate stage play. In the next part, we will discuss the emergency room of this trap. What happens when the high income stops? but the high expenses don't. The most terrifying part of the high-income poverty trap is its extreme fragility. When you live a high-burn lifestyle, you are essentially driving a Ferrari at 200 miles per hour with no brakes. Everything looks sleek and fast as long as the engine is running, but you have no margin for error. In the world of finance, we call this operational leverage. Because your fixed costs, the mortgage, the private school fees, the luxury car leases, are so high, you require a massive amount of cash just to stay at zero every month. For the average person, a 10% pay cut is a nuisance. For the paper-rich professional, a 10% pay cut is a total catastrophe. You cannot easily downsize your life overnight. You can't tell the bank you'll pay less for your house this month, and you can't easily pull your kids out of school without a massive social and emotional cost. This creates a state of performance anxiety that is soul-crushing. You are forced to stay in a job you might hate, under a boss you don't respect, simply because you are a slave to your own overhead. You have traded your career autonomy for a collection of premium assets that you don't even have the time to enjoy. If a health crisis hits or the industry shifts in 2026, the collapse is public and brutal. Your paper wealth evaporates instantly because it was never backed by real liquidity. It was backed by the hope that next month's paycheck would be just as big as the last one. You realize too late that you haven't been building a safety net. You've been building a gilded cage. To the world, you are a success story, but in the middle of the night, you are staring at the ceiling, calculating how many weeks you could survive if the direct deposit stopped. This isn't freedom, it's high-class survival. True wealth is measured in time, not toys. If you can't stop working for 6 months without losing your house, you aren't rich, you're just a well-paid tenant of your own life. We need to look at the debt illusion and how high earners use credit to mask the fact that they are actually broke. To maintain the rich-on-paper status, many high earners turn to a dangerous ally, elite credit. In 2026, banks don't just offer you a credit card, they offer you a lifestyle bridge. Because your salary is high, your credit limits are astronomical. This creates a debt illusion, where you confuse your ability to borrow with your actual wealth. When a high earner hits a month where expenses exceed their income, perhaps due to a luxury vacation or an unexpected home repair, they don't cut back. Instead, they use their high-limit cards to smooth out the cash flow. They tell themselves it's just a temporary measure, but with interest rates in 2026, this is financial suicide. Soon, you aren't just paying for your lifestyle, you are paying for the interest on the lifestyle you lived 6 months ago. This is how status debt turns into a permanent anchor. You see people with the newest gadgets and the finest clothes, but what you don't see is the $40,000 of high-interest consumer debt hiding behind their premium banking apps. They are using tomorrow's labor to pay for yesterday's ego. This creates a terrifying feedback loop. You need your high-stress job to pay off the debt, but the stress of the job makes you feel like you deserve to spend more on self-care luxuries, which leads to more debt. You are no longer working for yourself or your family. You are working for the credit card companies. They love the paper rich because you are reliable enough to make the minimum payments but trapped enough to never pay off the balance. This is the ultimate mirage. You look like a millionaire to your neighbors, but your net worth is actually negative. You are effectively broke with a high-definition filter applied. Breaking this cycle requires a radical admission of guilt. You have to admit that you've been living a lie. In the next part, we will explore the comparison trap and how your social circle is literally stealing your retirement. The most toxic element of the high-income poverty trap is the comparison trap. In 2026, social media has made it impossible to escape the highlights of everyone else's financial life. For a high earner, the benchmark isn't enough, it's more than the other person. You aren't comparing yourself to the average citizen. You are comparing yourself to the top 1% of your professional circle. If your colleague buys a second home in the mountains, you suddenly feel that your high-end suburban house is inadequate. This constant upward comparison acts as a wealth shredder. Every time you get close to saving a significant amount of capital, a new social benchmark appears that requires you to spend it. This is why so many people earning $250,000 a year have less than $10,000 in their investment accounts. They are so busy funding the now that they have completely sacrificed the later. They are effectively trading their 60s for their 30s. They assume that their high income will last forever, But they forget that professional burnout and industry shifts are inevitable. By the time they realize they need to save, they are so deeply entrenched in high fixed costs that they can't pivot. They are trapped on the treadmill. This is the death of retirement. True retirement isn't an age. It's a financial state where your assets generate more than your expenses. But when your expenses are $15,000 a month, the mountain you have to climb to reach retirement is nearly vertical. Most high earners will never reach it. They will simply work until they drop, forced to maintain the machine they built. They have all this stuff of a successful life, but they lack the one thing that actually defines wealth: the ability to walk away. They are rich in objects, but poor in time. To escape, you have to stop looking at what others are doing and start looking at your own freedom number. In the next part, we will discuss the asset-to-liability ratio and why your house is likely a trap. In 2026, the biggest lie high earners believe is that their expensive lifestyle is an investment. You've likely told yourself that your $900,000 home is your greatest asset. But in the reality of the high-income poverty trap, your house is often your biggest liability. Robert Kiyosaki's classic definition remains true. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. If you are a high earner living in a massive home, that property is relentlessly draining your liquidity through property taxes, high-end insurance, neighborhood-appropriate landscaping, and constant repairs. You are house poor on a grand scale. You have millions in equity on paper, but you can't buy a loaf of bread with a brick from your chimney. This is the illiquidity trap. High earners often lock their wealth into things they can't easily sell or use. They buy expensive art, luxury watches, and premium real estate, thinking they are building a portfolio. In reality, they are just increasing their cost of living. When you look at your balance sheet, you might see a high net worth, but if 90% of that is tied up in your primary residence and depreciating luxury cars, you are financially paralyzed. You have zero velocity of money. Wealthy people focus on income-producing assets, stocks, rental properties, or businesses that pay for their lives. The paper-rich, however, use their salary to buy liabilities that they label as assets. This distinction is the difference between freedom and servitude. Every asset that requires a monthly payment or maintenance fee is actually a chain holding you to your desk. If your portfolio doesn't generate cash, it's not a safety net. It's a collection of expensive hobbies. To break free, you have to stop buying things that look like wealth and start buying things that actually create it. You have to lower your burn rate so that your money can finally start working for you instead of you working for your objects. In the next part, we will explore the psychology of the pivot, how to actually start downsizing without losing your mind or your social standing. Escaping the high-income poverty trap is not a math problem. It is a psychological battle. To fix your finances, you have to be willing to commit social suicide in the eyes of your peers. This is the pivot. It's the moment you decide to sell the luxury SUV for a used sedan, move to a modest neighborhood, or stop attending the $5,000 weekend getaways. For most high earners, this is terrifying because their identity is completely wrapped up in their consumption. You fear that if you stop spending like a successful person, people will think you are failing. You worry that your friends will stop calling or that your professional reputation will suffer. This fear is exactly what keeps the trap locked. However, the reality is that most of your peers are also struggling behind closed doors. They are just waiting for someone else to be brave enough to stop first. When you pivot, you are reclaiming your power of no. You are choosing long-term sovereignty over short-term social proof. The hardest part of this transition is the middle ground, the period where you no longer have the flashy symbols of wealth, but you haven't yet built the actual bank balance of the truly wealthy. You have to be comfortable being misunderstood. You have to realize that the person who judges your older car or smaller house is someone who is still a slave to their own overhead. Their opinion is an anchor you can no longer afford to carry. The pivot requires you to redefine what success looks like. Instead of a high-limit credit card, success becomes a 6-month emergency fund. Instead of a designer wardrobe, success becomes a brokerage account that grows while you sleep. This shift in mindset is the only way to transform from being rich on paper to being wealthy in reality. It is a painful process of shedding your ego to save your future. In the final part, we will discuss the freedom blueprint, the exact steps to ensure you never fall back into the high-income poverty trap again, and how to finally own your life. The final step in escaping the high-income poverty trap is the creation of your freedom blueprint. This is where you stop being a servant to your salary and start becoming the master of your capital. The blueprint starts with one brutal realization. Your income is a finite resource, but your time is even more limited. To achieve true wealth, you must decouple your survival from your physical labor. This begins by aggressively slashing your fixed cost ratio. In 2026, the goal is to live on 50% or less of your take-home pay, regardless of how many six figures you earn. The remaining 50% isn't savings, it is seed capital. You must treat every dollar of that capital as a soldier whose only job is to go out and capture more dollars. You shift your focus from standard of living to quality of life. Quality of life is the ability to wake up and decide exactly how you will spend your day without checking your bank balance. To stay free, you must adopt the wealthy stealth mindset. You build your empire in silence. You let your neighbors keep the flashy cars and the massive mortgages while you accumulate income-producing assets that provide true security. You stop using debt as a bridge and start using it only as a calculated lever for growth. The ultimate exit from the trap occurs when your passive floor, the income from your investments, covers your basic living expenses. At that moment, you are no longer rich on paper. You are fundamentally free. You can work because you want to, not because you have to. You have broken the cycle of high-income poverty that consumes the lives of so many modern professionals. Remember, the world will always try to sell you a version of success that requires you to stay broke. Your job is to ignore the noise, ignore the status games, and build a reality where your wealth is invisible to the world but deeply felt in your peace of mind. The math of 2026 is brutal, but for those who prioritize freedom over furniture, the rewards are limitless. This is the end of the trap and the beginning of your actual life. Own your money, or your money will forever own you.